Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Return to the Realm, a reader's podcast for the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb. I'm Kayiu, here with Alex and Leah, and today we're going to be covering chapters 11 through 15 of Assassin's Quest. So, last time was very eventful, and while this is certainly a lull compared to how crazy last time was, that doesn't mean stuff isn't happening. Fitz is steadily moving up to the mountains after the skill command from Verity. Along the way, he gets captured by some of Regal's guards, manages to escape and make his way to Blue Lake, um, and along the way connects with a minstrel named Starling, who, as we know, becomes far more important later on. And they essentially start their passage across the river and towards the mountains. And just realized as I was talking about Starling, this is a reader's podcast not only for this original trilogy, but also for all 16 books in the Realm of the Elderlings series. So if you haven't read all of them, make sure to do that and then come back so you don't get spoiled for anything. Otherwise, if you have read all of them, cool. Nice to have you.
I always forget about the disclaimer and like us having to make it, and then I automatically just want to jump right into like talking about everything and realize that it could be horrible for someone who's just like hopping in. Like that would be awful to get everything spoiled by us.
Yeah, I'm like we mentioned Starling, and it's like, wow, yeah, remember when Starling just like completely exposed Fitz's entire history to the court after he ran away for several years in Tawnyman? And it's like, excuse me, what?
Well, I was thinking about how Starling brought Hap to Fitz, and how last time we were talking about how like it was kind of fitting and funny that like Fitz came off as like a scribe and like tried to play as a scribe, and then he went on to raise a minstrel. But I was thinking like, oh, Starling's a minstrel, and she like gave Fitz Hap and he became a minstrel too. And then I think
like one of the chapter intros is like,
yeah, and
like minstrels are like bastards of minstrels aren't like looked down upon, and they're sort of like
yeah.
like, and I was like, it's not exactly Hap, but it feels like it could be talking about like how Hap finally finds fulfillment through that and like a place where he belongs.
Well, and like I don't think that it didn't seem like, at least in the intro, the chapter intro, that the minstrels really raised their own. Like I feel like they did a little bit, but it's more like the whole community chips in to like raise this kid at the keep. And it seemed like kind of that's what Fitz does too.
I mean, yeah, that's basically what happens with like Fitz's upbringing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, Fitz is like, in an alternate universe, is an amazing minstrel or scribe. Like, just those are two career paths which would have fit him so well.
If I didn't know that Starling like thinks she can't get pregnant and is convinced she can't get pregnant, I would think that Hap was hers, and she just didn't want to deal with it, so she left him off the kids.
Yeah. I wonder why she didn't raise him as her own. Was the lord that she's married to like he didn't want kids or something?
Well, he's happy when she gets pregnant.
I think she gets married to him like even after she finds Hap for Fitz, I think.
Oh, is that true?
I think it's Starling sometimes just like does stuff impulsively. Like she's very focused when it comes to like her goals, but outside of that she'll be like, yeah, let's just go with it.
Starling
she's like Fitz is lonely. I have found Fitz a friend.
Yeah. I found this baby. Do you want it?
Starling gives me vibes like she will take care of her own kid, but she's too like selfish to take care of someone else's kid.
Yes.
So I bet she was like,
I can totally see that.
Yeah, like I don't want this kid to be like starving in the streets, but I also don't want to take care of him myself. So
he's not mine.
I want to be the cool aunt who just comes and stops by every so often.
I'll just give him to the recluse that I know.
But yeah, like Starling is so interesting to me because she's like unquestionably super selfish. But like I love how she's like selfish on like certain angles. It's like because I feel like when you have like a selfish character, lots of times that like consumes every part of their life. And I feel like for Starling, she can be like weirdly selfless in some areas, but she is ruthlessly selfish about the things that she like really matter to her or that she cares about.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anyways, yeah, we're talking a lot about minstrel, scribe, what Fitz could be. In this first chapter, Fitz is assigned shepherd. That's the title of the chapter. And in this one, I forget the name of this town, but um, yeah, essentially, Fitz, as part of getting to cross the plains and reach Blue Lake, hops along on like a cavern as a shepherd, um, and yeah, like he. This is also where we meet, I believe, Starling, Tassin, Dell, a few characters who matter only for the next few chapters, and Starling, obviously, who matters for the rest of it. I honestly, these chapters kind of like stretch together for me because it's all like one long trip. So
Yeah.
sorry if that was like not a great description because I forget what exactly happens here other than like he like just goes to the docks and gets that job.
Yeah, I forget what happens in the individual chapters, but I know what happens like in this whole section.
Mhm.
In this one, he has a skill dream where Molly gives birth. I
That's
feel
this
like that's
chapter?
like a big thing. That's this chapter, chapter
Mhm.
11.
wow.
Yeah, it's like
Wow.
right at the start.
Yeah. It's right away, yeah. There was one line that just made me feel really bad for her. She's saying, Burrich, like, she's like, you have to help me, and he is scared too, or he's reluctant. And she says, but Burrich, there's no one else to help me.
Oh my
And
God,
before he comes in, she's just by herself in labor. And she, like, that has to be really scary. And we all know that it hurts like a bitch. And she thinks that, like, the love of her life is dead, but she's going through labor with his baby. It's
Mhm.
like, that would be really scary. And it made me feel sad for her because she's so young.
Well, and like women, especially in this time and like back then, I'm saying back then like it's in our world, but you know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's like not uncommon to die in childbirth. And she's doing it alone so like she could die and not know like if her baby's gonna be fine because Burge wasn't there.
Right.
Like she is very strong. And I know that I like joked a lot about loving Celerity and Fitz together, but Molly is such an amazing character and I do love her so much. Like she is so strong for doing this all by herself and like staying calm and like trying to do what she knows is right and like talking to herself being like it's supposed to be like this, isn't it? Like oh, my heart.
Like for me, the
I
line "You were
also,
supposed to come after me. You were supposed to find me so I could forgive you," and it's like one of those things where it's like she is like so strong and she has to like make this choice, but that doesn't mean she still doesn't have like that feeling of like I still like she still loves Fitz and it's like hoping for the best, even though she knows it's like not gonna. She knew it
Yeah.
wasn't gonna happen, and then eventually he died, so he couldn't follow her.
for me, that line like, shows how young she is, because that's like a mentality I would have had as a teenager. Like, if you're getting in a fight with your boyfriend, you're like,
Yeah, you
I
sound
told you not
out.
to come. I told you not to call me, but you were supposed to call me.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very immature way of thinking, and like, it shows to me that she's still like so young.
Hmm.
Well, and the worst part about it is like Fitz wouldn't have gone and like he even admits that to us. Like he says, better not to ask than to ask and be refused. And she had been right. I wouldn't have gone. Like, oh my God. Even if he knew that she was pregnant with his child, he still would not have gone with her.
Wait, does he say
Like
that he
that
wouldn't have
is a
gone?
big blow.
I thought like he said that he would have gone. That like
No, he said he wouldn't have. There was too much happening at Buckkeep.
oh
Yeah.
wild, okay.
Yeah. At least he's finally not lying to himself about
I
something.
know. Thank God.
Right.
Mhm. I mean, it's
Um,
unfortunate that like the part that he's not lying to himself about is that he's an asshole.
Yeah, the most painful part.
Mhm.
I mean, it would have been a choice of like, do I go with her because she's pregnant, or do I try to save the entire kingdom?
Mhm.
And we know Fitz, he can't just be happy on his own.
Yeah.
No.
And
He's
it's like,
got to save the world.
yeah, it's just like the cascade of choices leading up to that moment. If he just talked to Molly more, if he hadn't like continued to have reckless, unprotected sex with her, despite like repeatedly being like reminded of the consequences.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I really appreciated about the scene of Molly giving birth is like so often in film and like in media in general, it's like a couple minutes of pushing and then baby born and everything happy. And that's like not the way that childbirth works. There's like you give birth to the kid and then it's like, okay, now there's placenta and everything is disgusting and you're in labor for like 20 hours and blah blah blah. And like she doesn't do that. It's not just like Nettle's born end scene. Burrich says like there's more work to do before we're done. And just like referencing that I think makes it so much more realistic. Of course it's written by a woman, so we should expect that, but I appreciated that she didn't like sugarcoat it or leave out like pieces of reality.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One thing that like totally got to me was when Birch is like handling Nettle and Molly's like, why isn't she crying? Like, what's wrong with her? And Birch is like, she's fine. And as beautiful as she is, what would she have to cry about? And I was like, Nettle might not be crying, but I totally was. Like, oh my God. I couldn't.
Oh,
I couldn't.
sweet.
Burge really is the perfect father.
Yeah.
To Nettle,
Mhm.
not to Fitz.
Not so much to Swift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to Fitz or Swift, no.
Mhm.
Fitz, he really just like treated him like a dog or a horse. He's like, live
Yeah,
in the street.
Fitz was like the
He
first
didn't know
child
how to
where you're
raise a
still like
kid.
learning how to
Yeah, it's like
parent, and then Nettle is there, and then it's
trained.
like, yeah,
Nettle's the
Nettle's like,
favorite part
I'm gonna
ever.
do right by you. You're so perfect, and then Swift is like, I am tired of having kids by this point.
Yeah.
Well, I think also, like, it makes sense why Birch would be so much harder on his boys than than Nettle, because like I'm sure they remind him so much of himself, and he doesn't want them to make the same mistakes that he did in his youth, so he's trying to like be hard on them to get them to behave and do all the things that he wants them to do. But like he's doing it out of love, but they don't like kids never really I feel like know that that's the reason why their parents are like really hard on them or do all these horrible things. Not horrible, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's
Right.
only like in Royal Assassin where Burge like explicitly begins to show support and love for Fitz.
Yeah.
Right.
He's still such a hard ass in the first book.
And then he loses Fitz. Like that's the worst part about it. Like we only get a really nice solid connection with them for one book.
Mhm.
Right.
Like for how long the series is, it's crazy how much like how many instances there are where there's like such little overlap between characters like being around each other, and I'm like, why would you do this? It's yeah.
Like Nighteyes is really only in like 3 books. Maybe 4 if you consider like well, I guess you could loop in the last trilogy if you're counting his like
Spirit.
or whatever. Yeah. But he's like such a big part of the series overall that when you think about him only being alive for 3 books of it, it's like, what?
Yeah, it is so wild.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
And like
weird.
he's gone for like a good like 7 chapters here, or maybe
Which
not.
also I was thinking about it and like he left Fitz in the summer and then came back in the winter. So he was gone for like 6 months too.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Like that is a long time. And I was thinking, like, if he hadn't have felt the skill call of Verity as well, like, would he have ever come back? Like, I don't think that he would have, and that's kind of a scary thing to think about.
I think he would have intended to, but because time means nothing to him, he would have forgotten. Or like,
Yeah.
and like, I'll go back to him later, and then Fitz would be dead because without Nighteyes, he doesn't have that long of a life expectancy.
For sure.
Hobb literally was like, okay, Nighteyes isn't here. We need another animal to save Fitz from himself.
Yes.
Small Ferret to the rescue.
I love Small Ferret. Small Ferret has been one of my favorites since I read this the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Small
I
Ferret
still
is
can't
like,
believe that I didn't pick up on Small Ferret being the one to kill Regal until like my third read of the book.
I can't believe it.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I caught it on the first one.
I just assumed that it was Fitz, like who, like I was just like Fitz and Nighteyes just came through and killed Regal, and then I like read it again and I'm like, oh,
Outright said it.
Small Ferret is the true hero of this book. Like, he's actually the one that kills the villain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And saves the protagonist.
Honestly, all of the names
Verity.
like
Small
Assassin's
Ferret.
Quest. I mean, Fitz calls Small Ferret a fellow assassin. That's the real.
I know. I
quest.
love that. I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
And how he said there's like honor among us assassins. I was like, yes, respect Small Ferret.
Oh yeah, okay, so coming back to this chapter, Fitz, after like realizing that he has a child, it's like it's really like beautiful to see how much he cares about Nettle and how much he wants to go back, but it also feels like he's like almost like a little bit like manic about it. Like he's like he's definitely slipping back into like everything will be perfect. I'll just get home and everything will be fine. And it's like Fitz.
He
It's
just
like what was death compared to a child's life shared? And I'm like, that's a beautiful line, but also like she thinks you're dead, dog.
Yeah.
It's really sad to read all the like hopes that he has for his future with Nettle and all the plans, because you know that like none of those come to pass, and Nettle's like kind of mean to him for the entire time that she ever knows him. So it's like,
yeah, she's either like mean because she's like, you're not my dad, or she's mean because she's like, why are you humoring mom? She's crazy. She's obviously not pregnant, and like, you're not raising B right. Like, she is a very sticking character, true to her name.
Mm-hmm.
she never tries to like, she never gives him even the slightest inch to try to like understand why he did what he did or where he was coming from. She's always like, you abandoned me. And it's like, well, he like thought that you were better off with Burrich, which you probably were.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
And
like all of that like makes sense, but like I think it like makes sense to us because we've been seeing it through Fitz's perspective. And then like for Nettle, it's probably like, yeah, so my imaginary friend is actually really my like my real dad, but he was around the whole time and he didn't show up except in my dreams. And it's like, huh?
Well, and she
Like
doesn't
I feel like that would fuck up any child.
she doesn't blame Burrich or Molly at all. And like, if it were me, I'd be almost more mad at my mom for lying to me my entire life. Probably more mad than my like imaginary father friend that clearly loves me, but thought that he couldn't be there because these other two people had lied about my birth and told me that I had a different dad.
Fair, but does he like clearly love her? I think from her perspective, she's like he's a cool dude, but like Fitz is sort of just like Fitz is awkward. Like I remember the scene where like I think it's like the first meet in Buckkeep after he comes back, and she's just like, you're weird and old. You're not how I pictured you. And then Fitz is like just being really formal and like honorable. It's like it reminds me because you're mentioning like in this section where like I would not have been as honorable as Fitz when like I would not have told the kid that he was going to die. I would have been like, yeah, I can save you with the wit magic. And I feel like Fitz has like that streak of like chivalry's like stiffness in him, and I feel like after like Nettle finds out that he's actually a human, whenever he's talking with her, he has that kind of distance, and I'm like, ah, okay. And also, all this is just my perspective. Yeah.
Scared of her. She's
Mhm.
so mean.
Yeah. I think one of the main reasons that Burrich and Molly lied to Nettle was to protect her, because I feel like if they told her at a young age that Fitz was her father, like and she like went about telling people, like that wouldn't have been safe for her. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's true, but at a certain age, they're like not.
But once
And I
the
think
kids
it's
get
easier to
older,
like.
like the lie has been so big and has grown this whole time. Like there's no way you can just do that. Like you can break the news to someone like 15 years after they were alive, thinking that like their father is not their father, you know?
And I think it's like
Yeah.
easier to like hate someone who you barely know than the parents that you've loved all your life, especially when one of them is dead, and like it's like, how do you reconcile that with the memory of them?
Yeah.
And I think so. I think Nettle's just like lashing out at the easiest place for her to lash out.
Yeah, it just always bugged me that she like didn't hold Molly accountable in any way and was just like ruthlessly mean to Fitz all the time. It's like
Hmm.
at least be mad at both of them, because it wasn't just Fitz doing everything. Like he was spying on you every chance he got,
Yeah.
and he
Hmm.
hates himself and thinks that no one loves him. Like at least be a little bit nice.
Yeah. Show him that at least one person cares about him.
Right.
Hmm.
And she
Yeah.
does get mad at him at one point and like say that. She's like, "You act like no one loves you." And it's like, "Well, you don't act like you love him."
Yeah.
You're
You're not
so
obvious with
mean.
your affection.
Okay, but
Like,
also there's definitely lots of times, like I even noted in the section where Fitz is like has people around him who cares about him, and then he's like, I'm so lonely. Meanwhile, you have Molly out here
yeah.
is like, Birch, I literally only have you.
Yeah.
Like there's a section later where like Fitz is literally like lying in bed with Starling, and who has like been nothing but, at least up to this point, nothing but companionable and like helpful. And he's like, I'm so lonely, just like my wolf. I'm like so alone. I'm like the most lonely little man in the world. I'm like, you can't have it both ways. You can't be like, I'm never going to talk to another human in my life again, and then also be like, it sucks
But
being
I'm
lonely.
starved for affection and attention.
It's like, have you seen that meme
That's
of like
not
the
his
person who's
life.
riding a bike and then puts a stick in the wheel and is like, oh fucking whatever. I feel like that's Fitz, where he's like self-sabotaging himself by like, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Oh, I was thinking about this. How do you guys think that Burrich sees Molly at this point when he still thinks that Fitz is alive? Is he just like, this is Fitz's girl, like I need to just take care of her? Or is he starting to see her as like, this could be potentially someone for me, like I'm gonna steal Fitz's girl?
Okay, I
I
don't
don't
think he
think
ever thought of it that way.
I know, but like, do you think that he sees Molly for this like the beautiful woman that she is, or do you think that he's still in his head like, this is Fitz's, I can't do anything, I just need to take care of them until Fitz comes? Like he's a
I
stand-in kind of.
I think he sees her like that until she comes on to him.
Hmm.
Like I think he probably holds himself back up until that point, and when she has to be like, because she even says like, marry me in front of the witness stones, so that we can tell people that she's his, and he's like, no, I can't do that, and she's like, yes, it's not a lie if we like really get married and I want to be with you, and then he's like, you know.
But I feel like he
Yeah.
says he said he would lie for them, and then she
And
was
she
like,
says
it
he
would,
doesn't have to or
yeah,
something.
it doesn't have to be a
Yeah.
lie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the last skill dream that Fitz has of them in this section, where like Burrich offers to like care for Nettle, I feel like that's probably when like, at least on Molly's end, I feel like that's when she starts to maybe start to have feelings for him.
Oh,
At least
for
that
sure.
was my reading. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Mhm.
When I first read this, I was like, I was like ready to throw the book across the room when they finally got together, but like it makes sense. It's like built up really well.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I was so completely blindsided by it because I was just like, okay, that's not like Hobb isn't gonna do that. Like stuff. It's the end of the series. Fitz is gonna be happy. And it's like
I'm
everyone but
excited to see.
Fitz gets to be happy.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see Julia's reaction.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so out of left field, and um, wasn't the theory that like Birch and Kettricken were gonna get together or something?
Yeah, yeah.
Was it? Oh, is that what she predicted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the heck? Why do
I
I remember that?
think I strategically took a drink of tea so that I wouldn't giggle and give anything away.
Yeah, I have to like hide my face anytime she's doing predictions because I'm like, I'm gonna spoil the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm so bad. I cannot control my face at all.
Just all of us like I think there's one moment where we all simultaneously just like said it was like we asked her about the fool or something and like I don't remember what it was, but we were just all like drink.
I thought it was her saying that Fitz wouldn't go back to Bucky.
That too.
In the
That
first
was
book, I was
also.
like, I can't hold this in.
Mhm. Okay, that one wasn't even that bad because it's like we weren't spoiling it that bad because it happens like in the
Yeah.
first 5 chapters.
It happens in like he decides to go back in the prologue, I think.
Yeah.
At like
So
the
like,
very
it's
end. or
right at the
something, yeah.
beginning.
Well, and like I think Molly and Burridge is gonna come totally out of left field too because remember when she like listened to the intro episode and then heard me say that Molly and Fitz are married, and then
Oh
she
yeah.
quit listening to it right away, so she has that little bit spoiled. So she's gonna end this trilogy the way I ended this trilogy, being like, "What the fuck?
Yeah.
Fitz and Molly are married though."
How do we
Oh
get
my
from point
God.
A to point Q? What is going on here?
Yeah. Yep.
That's so funny. I forgot about that. I wouldn't have even like it does make sense why you would think that. And be like, how is she with Burrich right now? Reading the other ones. That makes sense. That's
Right.
so funny.
Yeah.
Another thing that I found actually really funny was Fitz is like trying to make his fake life seem real. And someone was like talking about how his like fake sister had kicked him out. And someone was like, "Oh, like what a bitch!" And he's like, "I took a breath to defend my fictitious sister."
About to defend his
I'd
fake.
only be extending the conversation, and I laughed out loud. I was like, "That's so funny," because that's some stuff I would do. I would like make up a whole fake family and then get in a fight with someone defending my fake family when like none of them are real, none of it even matters. Like that is definitely something that I would or have done.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was funny too.
That's me, like ferociously defending a character I know nothing about from a book I haven't read, just
Yeah.
based on vibes. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, I think that was with Tassin, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
So-
it?
Yeah, because like he keeps trying to like leave that conversation where she's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
She's relentlessly hitting on him.
I hate her
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, she
I-
sucks big time.
I think in this point it's okay. I feel like it's kind of sad that they made her like bad because I almost feel like there's something interesting here because like Fitz is like weirdly unempathetic when talking to Tassin about how like she like feels like her life has been railroaded. Like he's like, you're fed and you're clothed and you're sheltered and you're learning a trade that you should be grateful for, and like and that would let you travel all across the 6 duchies. And it's like that's literally what Shade would say to Fitz as like you should be grateful, boy. And like Fitz just doesn't recognize that.
Well, Shape did say that to Fitz at one point.
Mhm. Like straight up. So
Yeah.
I feel like Fitz should be like a little bit more empathetic there. Mhm. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I
then
I
would
feel
think
like
that.
it would have been nicer to see her go in a different direction, and instead of like ratting Fitz out, like doing something else. But I mean, it kind of makes sense why she would, because she would think that if she rats him out, she gets the money, she can like pay off her debt to what's his face and like get to be free and do her own thing. But she's such a fuck for like doing that. Like I hate her guts. And I hope that she gets a couple extra lashes and a couple extra beatings because she deserves them at that point.
yeah, okay. I was a little scandalized, but then I got to the part where she was like, "Yeah, Fitz tried to rape me," and I'm like, never mind." Yeah.
She's a lying sack of turds.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I kind of just yeah, but like I wish she was a nice character because I feel like we already had this kind of character archetype with Honey earlier, and I'm just like, I just want people to be nice.
Piper was nice.
Piper was nice, but we didn't get to like. I feel
Gosh.
like it was like can every woman who comes onto Fitz in this section not be like evil and like catty or like trying? Mhm.
Yeah.
Starling's not evil or catty yet.
I was gonna
Yet.
say, but she becomes it, so I feel
Yeah,
like
and
she
like and
has to there.
she doesn't like hit on him immediately. Like Honey and like Tassin are like immediately going for that dick, while like
Yeah.
Starling and him like they like sleep in the same bed like several times, and she's just like, yeah, whatever. Like they're like she's not like I don't know. I feel like it's just like a weird characterization thing.
Yeah,
Speaking
it
of
is.
going for the dick, something that Hobb wrote shocked me so much because Fitz is like talking about how like getting with Tassin probably wouldn't have done much for him. And he's like, I knew also that for that deeper hunger for companionship and understanding, she offered me no more solace than any man might find in his own hand. And I was like, oh my God, please don't write this. I don't want to read that.
Fitz, we don't need to hear about your activities.
I know. I was like, please, please, no. Can I unread that? But I had to read it for all of you because if I'm going to be feeling like secondhand cringe because of Fitz, you all need to join in with me. Like, I can't suffer alone. I can't.
I feel cringe like that every time Fitz says my bowels turn to water or my bowels turn to ice.
I
Why?
just take that as like an
So
expression
much.
or whatever.
He says it so much, and I'm always like, stop talking about your bowels. Please.
It's a very strong image, though. Like, you can definitely, like, I feel like you can tell and, like, you can feel it almost when he says that, like, what he means and what feeling he's trying to convey.
Yeah, I just
Honestly,
hate it.
I feel like I would be able to visualize it better. He was just like my ass cheeks clenched instead of like because I can't I can't visualize like the bowels are inside. I cannot visualize that. But like
Well, the way
Well-
I view it is like where
Like
like
a knot in your stomach.
yeah, when you get like really scared and you like
True.
freeze and like your whole insides just get like whenever something horrible happens, like my whole body just gets really cold. So I feel like that's probably what he's trying to say, but like he doesn't say it in a very eloquent way.
For me, I always get nauseous. So it's like reverse nauseous. Like butt nausea.
Yeah. That's I think like diarrhea.
That's what it
no, we've dubbed it butt nausea. let's get a Merriam-Webster on that shit. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, one
This
thing
is a
I
real
think is
thing.
interesting though is that like I've paid attention and she doesn't use that when another character's narrating. Like I noticed when I was reading live shit,
Thing?
it's just a Fitz thing because
Oh my God.
I was like I wonder if that's like a like something that she just
Just like her
writes
trademark
like,
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, if when I'm editing my books, I'll say rolled their eyes all the time. It's like an expression that I use a lot. So I thought maybe that was like that for her, but I don't remember ever seeing or hearing it in live ships. I think it's just like a Fitz thing.
That is so funny.
It's another
one that
like
has butt nausea.
It's just in the Six Duchies is a backwater, and I feel like that's the type of like backwater phrase.
Yeah, that's some random ass shit they would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some animal references that like I noted here is when Fitz is hanging out with Starling, he mentions she spoke to herself in the night, and I just happened to be within earshot as some men talk to a favorite dog. And I feel like this section is like Fitz does kind of like revert to wolf or dog when he's just like, I stopped thinking for the next few days. I just did what I was told. He sort of just like goes with the flow once more.
Yeah.
And yeah, like
I made note of that too. Because he does kind of shut everything off. Because he knows that there's nothing that he can do to get to Nettle right now. So there's no point in like harping on it and causing him more like distress.
Where it's like, that is a coping mechanism. It certainly is one.
It's healthier than birches, so
I mean,
Yeah.
so true.
It reminded me of the last trilogy when Bee is kidnapped and they're like just hanging out at Buckkeep and they can't do anything about it because they have no idea, like they have no leads. Fitz just like compartmentalizes how stressed out and anxious he is about Bee and focuses on like becoming a better warrior and blah blah blah. Like I remember being frustrated when I was reading it because I was like, Bee is out there, but reading this part reminded me a lot of that, where he's like so upset that he just has to turn it off so that he can function.
yeah.
The other animal reference I noted was when talking about Tassin, Fitz mentions that she stretched an oddly cat-like gesture, and I'm like, that's a hint. That's a hint that like it's not gonna work out, because dogs don't get along with cats. And
Thing.
this is the thing. Later on, like Starling does the exact same thing, where it's like she stretched herself like a little cat in like chapter 14, and I'm like, once again, I'm starting like, I feel like this happens with like a lot of characters, and I just haven't noted it before. So I'm starting cat watch, or even like cat stretch watch.
I like that.
Because like I feel like Hobb uses that a lot, and I feel like it probably, unless I'm overreading into it, I feel like it could be like this character is not going to end up getting along with Fitz. That, or she just likes describing, just using that metaphor because a cat stretching is very evocative, and she has a lot of cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think Fitz is just like so attuned to animals that he'll use an animal metaphor to describe anybody and anything that he can.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure.
I think that those are all of my notes for this chapter. Do y'all have any?
Yeah, me too. I feel like we ran through this one.
Oh, okay, true, but also we spent 40 minutes on this chapter.
Okay, because we never start off talking about the section, like the podcast never begins organized. We always start talking about like the last trilogy or live ships or something random. Like it's never what it should be, and then we gotta like take our time to actually get back on topic.
Yeah, secretly we've covered like half of this already. We've discussed everything there is to talk about Starling.
Yeah. And she like hasn't even shown up, right?
Oh no, she shows up, but she doesn't like do anything.
But she's like inconsequential for the first couple chapters that she's in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next chapter is chapter 12, Suspicions. Fitz continues to travel with the group, but word is now spreading about the escaped witch prince with a white streak in his hair, a new sword slash down his arm, a broken nose. You know, all of these incredibly identifiable features. Yeah. Starling, basically, because she's super perceptive, immediately clocks him, and Fitz is like, ah, shit, but doesn't really like bother to change his appearance. Unfortunately for him, the Pharaoh guard end up catching up with him, and one of them, Bolt, who is one of his torturers, recognizes him. They end up carting him off, but Fitz poisons them all and manages to escape. And desperate for water, he like starts trudging his way on foot over to Blue Lake.
Well, Bolt doesn't recognize him. Freaking stupid ass Tassin rats him out. And that's the only reason that Bolt makes him like take his shirt off to see the gouge in his shoulder. That's the only reason that he even recognizes or like realizes it's actually Fitz.
Oh yeah, for sure. But like Bolt is
Starling
able to
tells him
identify him once it's like up close and personal.
Yeah. Starling tells him to like dye his hair with grease or something, but he doesn't do that. And he even says like I didn't do that and it would have been noticeable upon close inspection. Instead, he like actually plucks out all the white hairs, which is like even smarter.
Oh,
And it's interesting the way she writes it because you don't like as a reader you don't think Fitz is doing anything to try to hide himself.
Oh.
Because there's no moment where he's like, I sat down with my mirror to change my appearance. And you don't realize until Bolt's looking at him and you're like, oh my god, he's gonna know because he's gonna see the streak. And it's like, I plucked out all the white hairs. But then Bolt makes him take his shirt off anyways and sees the bite mark, which I still get so cringe about. There's like a whole chunk of his flesh missing because someone ate it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so gross.
I wonder what it looks like.
I don't.
like if you take I bet it's like if you take a bite out of like
an apple.
A potato.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
dude, just raw dog potatoes.
Fun fact: when I used to work at a gas station, we got a free like piece of wellness for our shift. So most people get like one apple or one banana or something. And I asked my boss if one potato would count, and they were like, why do you? And I was like, well, does it? And then I cooked it in the oven in the back and alternated the oven and the microwave until it got soft. And then I put nacho cheese on it because that was also free.
Okay, that's actually that's good. That's
free.
Much better than the idea I had, which is just raw potato.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can always get behind baked potato. That's good shit.
Especially with nacho cheese. That's good.
I was like, what can I, as a poor college student, eat for lunch? For free. Free potato and Mars.
What? Oh yeah, like going back to like how we don't realize that Fitz is like taking care to like guard his appearance until he mentions it. This chapter definitely has like the thing where we're like separated from Fitz's thoughts, where like we're like, what the fuck is he doing getting water and shit? And just like the guards are right there. What is your plan, Fitz? And then it's not until he says like, yeah, I hope the poison is enough to like I forget what the actual line is. But like Fitz chivalry would not perhaps have poisoned all 6 guards for the sake of killing one, and you're like, oh shit! Like
I loved it.
Yeah, and I love those ones because we're usually like so in his head that when we get like decoupled from it, and then it's like so much more hard hitting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this chapter's like done so well because like for me the first time I was reading it, I was so like, how is he gonna get out of this? Because he's been doing nothing to try to like plan for it or prevent it. And then when I like read that, I was like, oh thank God he has been doing something at least. Like
and then the poison doesn't work and you're like, oh fuck. Not again, Fitz. Right. And then when it finally comes through, it's like
it took so long. Like that was a day and a half or something, wasn't it? Like it took a long time for it to even start kicking in. That's kind of wild. It must have been like stale or something. Like is that how poison works?
With like certain like herb stuff, if you like cook it, if you like it like
that makes sense.
It's probably a combination of old plus cooked.
Yeah.
I wonder, going back to Tassin, I wonder if she would have put the pieces together that Fitz is Fitz if Starling hadn't sung the Antler Island song.
She sucks for that too.
Yeah, I
I
think
feel
she
like both
drew
of you guys
everything.
are harder on Starling for that than I feel like she deserves. I think she's a little stupid.
She drew
What?
everybody. She brought Fitz chivalry to everybody's mind.
There is no reason that, like, as if she wasn't obvious enough that she, like, knew who Fitz was and trying to convince Fitz to, like, out himself to her. She had to do that and out him to, like, everyone almost.
Everybody. She literally just outs him to everybody.
And, like, she knows that that's not a song that's gonna go off well in Pharaoh. So, like, there's no other reason for her to sing that besides to, like, get under Fitz's skin and, like, see if he's gonna react to it.
I thought it was more like, I read it as more like, she's like, see, I'm on your side. How I see Fitz is not like how everyone else sees Fitz as like this evil weirdo. It's like supposed to be like, I'm on your side type thing.
I wonder what, like, all the astrological signs and stuff all of these guys are. Like, I think it would be so fun to try and put them into, like, categories.
We'll never know for sure with Fitz because we don't know anything about his birth time or location or date. But if I had to guess, I would say he's a Libra because he cannot make a goddamn decision to save his life.
I could see that. But I feel like he's so stubborn. Like, he's gotta be, like,
Aries?
an earth sign, right?
Mhm.
He could be all of them, honestly, because he's the frickin' catalyst. It makes sense that he would just be, like, all the signs at once.
I think like
I think he has a
Earth sign or
fire
air
moon.
sign makes a lot of sense because like he has like that push and pull.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's super
I
stubborn,
think
but
he has
also
a
very
fire
flighty.
moon just for his extra angriness. Like when he gets mad, he gets so mad. There has to be some fire sign in there somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Nettle is probably the only one who we can like close to conclusively say, and even then we only know like sometime in winter.
Well, I think it could
Right.
be like, it's probably like November or December because I think it's just the beginning of winter.
Mhm.
Early winter. So she's probably like a Sagittarius. Or what's like mid-November? I can't remember.
I have no clue.
Think of anyone that I know that's born in Scorpio. Scorpio's November.
She's not a water sign, though.
No, I don't. I think she's probably Sagittarius. Or she could be Capricorn.
When's Capricorn? Isn't that...
Capricorn's like end of December, early January.
I could see that.
I could see her being a Capricorn. My mom is a Capricorn and she could give Nettle vibes.
Is she gonna come on? Are we gonna have her on?
She said she would.
That'll be
I'm so
fun.
excited.
We're gonna have so many guests. We just need to amass a lot of guests. It'll be fun.
Mhm. I mean, it
It's
makes
gonna
sense
be
for
for
like
our
a
live
trilogy.
ship party. We're gonna have a party on the live ship that we carve ourselves, right?
So true.
Yeah.
We need to slow down a little bit to give ourselves time to actually finish carving a live ship.
We also need to gather a lot of other people that we're going to sacrifice for the live ship to make it a real one. I think we did talk about this before, and I think that it also was my idea back then to
We need to kill 3
use
people.
randos. Yeah.
Wait, I forget. Do you need to like? Can you just like go bam, 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 sacrifice 5 people to quicken a live ship, or does it have to be over generations? Or is the generation
I
thing
bet
more
you
like a
could.
conceit or tradition?
Well, I think that
something was like a.
I think it's just a tradition.
Okay.
Because, like, didn't Paragon kind of like quicken when like his whole crew got killed? Or was
that was because like there were like 2 generations of Bloodlux there, right? Who died? Oh no, Kenneth didn't die. I guess only the Elder Kenneth or Elder Bloodluck died. No, wait, he didn't even. Yeah, so I guess like yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
I think it's just a tradition and a way to make sure that the live ship had like your family's traits.
Sensibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
And
personalities.
is like loyal to your family too.
Mhm.
Because the stone dragons have similar functionality in terms of like soaking up memories and waking up, and those just need a certain amount of blood.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Mhm.
So I would imagine the ships are similar.
Okay, so I guess
Back to chapter
before all
12.
this stuff happened, we were talking about we were in heated debate over Starling's decision to sing Antler Island.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
We made a bad call.
Yeah, for sure. But I kind of like I had more understanding for her after we learned that Fitz saved her brother during Antler Island, and it makes sense why she would like sing it to like have him hear that he's like this hero and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's like you need to start thinking things through a little bit more because that was not a smart move, Starling.
Mhm.
Imagine if he really was like this rando Tom the Shepherd guy. That poor man.
Yeah. That would have been terrifying.
Mhm.
And
You look
Starling
so
thinks
much
that.
like
She's
the
like,
wood
oh, the
bastard.
poor shepherd that they like carted off as the bastard.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oops." Anyways,
Oops. Bye,
You don't get
Tom.
me a nice fancy cloak and like a lot of money and a nice inn.
Mhm.
Sorry to that shepherd guy. What's
Honestly,
next?
I'm kind of surprised that like Fitz doesn't immediately start planning how to kill Starling and Tassin. I feel
Yeah.
I feel like his assassin brain would just like immediately go to that.
I know, that's what I was thinking too. At least for Tassin, like, well, actually, I think more for Starling because I thought at the beginning at least that Starling was more dangerous because I feel like she's so much smarter.
Mhm.
But he definitely should have killed Tassin. I feel like he's gone soft since his grave birth.
I don't even know that it's that. I think he's just like he's just super passive in this thing because I feel like he's scared that any action will draw attention to him. But it's sort of like you got to get out of Dodge.
Well, and he was yelled at all throughout the last book for taking action, so it makes sense why that would kind of carry over into this one and make him hesitant to do really anything besides like murder the king and go off to the mountains because he's skill commanded to.
Yeah, I think it's like he tried to kill Regal and he's like, shit, that one portion of individual planning didn't go well. Time to never take initiative ever again.
Yeah. And that's why he becomes a recluse.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Something I love that I actually just thought a little bit deeper about right now is when Fitz is chained up when Bolt has him and he's like going they're taking him back to Tradeford. Fitz tells himself, um, he said, endure, I told myself sternly, live and see what chances are offered you. And that sounds like something that the Fool would say to Fitz. And like, though we don't know him very well right now, like that is something that, like, even though the Fool feels horrible for like making Fitz have to survive and live and like not just let him like stay dead, it felt like such a Fool thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like just not having the Fool in more of this book feels like such a punt. I feel like I don't know how the Fool would be more in this book, to be fair, with the current structure. But I'm just like, just given how important the Fool is to just everything, and it just feels weird that he's not there for the first half.
Well, I thought that he like meets up with everyone so much sooner. I just feel like I thought that the Fool was like played such a because the Fool does play such a large role in this, but I just assumed that they like met up really close to the beginning of the book just because of how much happens with the Fool and Fitz in this book.
Hmm. Yeah, like once they meet up and are actually off to Keltingra, like the Fool plays like such a big role.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of
I'm really
Keltingra, Starling says songs are more likely to be found clinging to a man than bound to a place. And I'm like, tell that to Kelsingra, Starling. Come on now. It even has
Yeah.
sing in the name. Like,
dang, I didn't even think about that.
mhm.
And it's so tied up with memories that if regular people go in there, they go insane.
Mhm. And
I
even
am
like
so excited
accepting.
to get to that section and like really dive deep into it because there's going to be so much that I missed. And like now that we have the whole series down, it's going to be so interesting to like dive into it and like really dig deep and like analyze every single thing.
Yep.
Yeah, because like we're like the first time through, it's like, huh, kind of weird place. I guess the Elderlings were here, and then like you like read up everything in live ships about the Elderling structures, and then everything that happens, or at least so far that I've read in like the Dragon Keeper Chronicles, where it's like
Mm.
uh Elise has like all of this stuff that she knows about like Kelsingra and like it's and all like getting to learn about dragons and Elderlings firsthand from the baby dragons. It's like there's so much context.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, I guess since I'm like just reading Dragon Keeper and just read Live Ships like the past summer, it feels like so much fresher slash so much wilder because like I've reread like the the Fitz book so many times, but this is the first time I'm getting like this very important context, and it's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to reread that section because I haven't since I read Live Ships and Rain Wilds. So now, like, every other time I've read it, it's just been like, Ag abandoned castle place. And now I know that's Kelsingra. And, like, there are 4 books that pretty much almost exclusively take place in this city. And Fitz is there early on. And, like,
Mhm.
fucks some shit up in the map room and then makes Elise mad.
I loved that. A little callback.
Right?
Um, for this chapter, I guess I had like 2 more notes. The first was uh, when Bold dies, Fitz says he felt the absence of his life like sunlight on my face, and like, goddamn.
That's savage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
But it
liked
kind of
that he
makes
killed
sense.
Bolt by like repel. Well, he killed him by the poison, but like his repelling was kind of like a death blow.
Mhm.
It's been a while since Fitz repelled at somebody. Like the last time I really remember him doing that outside of like through the skill is Assassin's Apprentice because he used to do that
Burris,
to
right?
people. Yeah, he used to do that when anyone like made him uncomfortable. He'd just like repel at them, and then Burrich yells at him for doing it, so he stops. But he does it again here, and I'm like, Fitz, this is a tool that you do not utilize enough. Like, I'd be repelling at people all the time. If anyone got within like my personal bubble, I'd be like, repel.
Well, I think also that recently someone made a post about it on the subreddit
I
about
saw that,
how
but
like
like, why doesn't he do it more?
yeah, or like
Why he
noticing
doesn't?
that he does it a good amount in this trilogy and like maybe some in Tawny Man, but like not really at all in Fitz and the Fool.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
don't
how to
get why
explain
he
that
doesn't
one.
do it much.
I feel like he, like at least in this book, the reason that he does it less is because I feel like Fitz has been kind of conditioned just by like the way the Farseers are to be like skill is the magic we use with humans, and the wit that's just for me and my buddy old pal Nighteyes. Um,
I
even
think
though Nighteyes can
also,
operate through the skill, that's a Nighteyes exclusive thing. I can never learn how to use the wit through the skill. He just like has that like fixed mindset.
well, and it would be so dangerous for him to do that because he's definitely going to be outing himself as witted because there's no other kind of reason for him to be able to do something like that,
Do
right?
normal people even know about repelling? I feel like that's just like so outside of like what they just assume like, oh wow, like because like in the first first book whenever Fitz repelled, like everyone was like fucking weird. Why is that person just stumbling over? They're just
Yeah.
dumb.
Well, I think also you can like focus the repel on specific people. Like it doesn't have to be everyone in the area. And so when like only one person feels it, it makes sense why everyone else would be like, what the fuck's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of repelling and the wit and all of that stuff, there is something that really confused me. And it's when Nighteyes kind of pops in for 1 second and asks Fitz, "Do you not need me?" And Fitz says, "I felt his twinge of conscience as he asked this." Do you guys know what that means?
I think he felt like a little bit guilty.
That was
Or
my
like
thought as well.
sad. Like
Nighteyes feels guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, I thought maybe he was like a little. The way that I read it the first time was like he is kind of like not jealous, but he's a little bit upset at like feeling like maybe he's not as important in Fitz's life anymore.
I read it as like guilty that he hasn't been keeping up with Fitz's life as much as he feels like he should have.
yeah, that's how I read it too.
Well, that's cuter than I thought. Also, it's really fucking sad because like Nighteyes has been gone for so long, and he like kind of does just throw Fitz away like a little dirty dish towel. And Fitz is like floating in the wind, and Nighteyes is like, "Yeah, I didn't even think you could like handle all of these things by yourself, so I'm kind of surprised you're even alive." Like,
I forgot he like basically says that. Like, wow,
It's
you've been
just
through a lot of
floating
hardships. It's a miracle
in
you
the wind.
survived. But also, it's like it's so cute how like Fitz reassures him in the next line where it's like, "I always need you. I need to know you're alive and safe." And it's like, oh, my heart.
I'm just kind of like, I guess I like held a little bit of a grudge at like Nighteyes for leaving for that long. Like I wanted him there, and I like Fitz accepting him back so quickly like kind of makes me upset. I'm like, you should be mad at him. And he was just like happy that
I would
he's there and is so selfless and is like, my boy, my dog, like my wolf. And I'm over here like, you should shun him for like at least a minute.
at
Like,
least
No, you're giving Fitz more maladaptive coping strategies.
Yeah.
I don't know how Fitz handled it because my dog slept on the floor instead of in my bed one night this weekend, and the whole like next day and a half I was like, Frodo's mad at me.
Oh my god.
And Nighteyes leaves for like 6 months and Fitch is just like, this is fine.
That's because he has to tell himself it's fine, else he's gonna freak out.
I mean,
Right.
I mean, it's also because he's been so lonely, and he's like my one friend, the half of me. I'm whole again. Also, I guess I don't blame Nighteyes as much because I'm like, this is Hobb, not Nighteyes. Hobb needed to get Nighteyes out of the way for plot convenience's sake, so that Fitz would actually struggle. So like,
I don't blame him as much because I think he has no concept of time. Like I think to Nighteyes he probably like doesn't realize he's been gone a long time. He's like, I went and had wolf fun for 3 days and now I'm back, and it's like, actually it was like way longer than that.
man, I wish I could use that as an excuse. Like, hey, sorry I ghosted you for 6 months. I'm just a wolf, you know. We don't.
I have no concept of time. I just thought that it was like 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understand all of that, but like, I'm still mad at Nighteyes for just like 1 minute. Like, I'm really happy that he's back, but I'm like, why did you even have to leave in the first place? You could have stayed.
Because he needed to learn about his own kind.
He had to learn about wolves.
And he would have stayed. Like, that's the part that really like gets to me and like bothers me so much is like he would have stayed for the rest of his life if it wasn't for Verity. Like, he would have definitely challenged like Black Wolf multiple times after that to like win and become the leader.
Mm-hmm.
And like that bothers me so much that he could just like that he could do that. And I understand why he could, because like he doesn't realize that he's gone for this long, and like it doesn't work that way in his head, but still like he could have left us for eternity. We could have had 1 and like a third or a fourth of a book with Nighteyes, and that could have been it. Like,
I mean, I think the other way to think of it is like Nighteyes is like given his entire life to Fitz. Like
yeah,
it could have just as easily been Fitz went off and died at Regal's hands, and that would have been it. Or Fitz, once knowing of Nettle, could have just gone and lived there, and like Nighteyes' choices are either like live an independent life or just stay here. And like he does end up going with Fitz and like giving up his entire life, but I don't. I feel like I begrudge him. I would let him have more of his time with, because like it feels like Night Eyes like does have like a long fulfilling life, but also like so much of it is bound to Fitz's
yeah,
wants and
it could have been
dreams.
more fulfilling.
Like I wish we had Fitz going with Night Eyes to be with the wolves, and just
But
like
you know, there's no way the wolves would have
And
accepted
one
him.
weird guy.
Yeah, he's running after them. Wait, guys, I can't run that fast on my 2 legs. Can you imagine? And then, like, eventually he's been with them for so long that, like, all of his clothes are in tatters and he's just, like, running around naked with these wolves. Like,
It'll be like that movie Walk Like a Man, but in reverse.
yeah,
you know what? At least then, like the artist would have an excuse to give him like these romance novel abs and poses. It's like okay, he doesn't he was like with Night Eyes. That's why he doesn't have any clothes. Okay, it's not because of art convenience.
yeah. Fitz does be losing his shirt, like, so many times in this book. Like, this is the first book where he's like, I mean, yes, he was having sex a lot in the last book, but like this is the first book where he's just like losing his clothes. And it makes me so uncomfortable and so nervous. I'm like, anytime he's like, I took my shirt off to do this, I'm like, put your shirt back on. Like, you need this. This is the only shirt you have. Like, you can't be just throwing it away like that. You need your shirts, Fitz.
Also, like the one time like he takes off his shirt, it like Bolt is like, ah, that's the scar. That's the scar. And it's like, Fitz, Fitz, you are identifiable. You are hilariously identifiable.
Yep. He also is just like reckless with his clothes. And it's like, that's the only like clothes that you have, so
I think
don't
he's just
be.
used to like living in Buckkeep where Mistress Hasty would like whip him up a new pair instantly.
But then
Yeah.
he's like okay with wearing pants for so long that the knees wear through, and then he'll like take them off and be like, oh, the knees wore through on my pants. It's like, no shit, Sherlock. You've been wearing those clothes for 3 months. Like, never changing.
Yeah.
Fitz does not have any sort of self-care skills at
He
all.
does get embarrassed later about like how ratty his clothes had gotten, but like I think he hadn't
Only
realized.
based on like other people's responses to him, though.
And that was
That's true.
after he drank elf bark, so he was in a particularly like downer mood.
That's also true. I feel like the only time he cares about clothes is on Elf Bark.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, do we have anything else for chapter 12?
I don't.
I have one last thing, and it's just really quick. I just want to say that it warms my heart, and I love that Burrich's earring is so important to Fitz that it's the very first thing that he gets, even before the keys to unshackle himself. Like, he needs to have that little tie to like Buckkeep and like his family before he can even like care about his freedom, and I just love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't notice that, but that is really sweet.
It touched my heart.
And then the very next chapter,
Oh my god.
Rich thinks Fitz dies.
Yeah, that is my first note. My heart broke and just shattered, and now it's gone. Like, I don't even have one anymore because
This is the
How
second time we see Birch
sad.
cry in this trilogy. Or
And
this.
It's always about Fitz dying.
Yeah, it's about Fitz dying again.
And this time, like, I feel like the last time it was like happy tears that like Fitz is alive, mixed with like sad tears, like, oh my god, what the fuck did we just do to him? But now it's just completely like my first child is dead and never coming back. Like,
And
That-
Birch
He
like
blames
ends up
himself.
internalizing it as like his fault.
Yeah.
If only I had taught him better.
Or if only I had stayed
Or
instead of listening to
only I
Shade
had
and leaving.
Mhm.
taken him to chivalry. Like he says, I let them have him. I almost put him on a horse and sent him to chivalry, but I didn't. It's like he thinks it's his fault for like, oh, it's so sad.
I know, it breaks my heart.
Yeah, my only note there is I cannot handle or process Birch thinking if Fitz is dead. Like that just entire scene is.
And the fact that he straight up thinks he's dead from this point all the way up until Fitz tells Nettle to tell Burrich, I had a dream where a wolf with porcupine quills came to me and told me, like, I'm watching over Swift or whatever it was.
Mhm.
Like 16 years later.
Wasn't it like it's like 25 at that point, right? I might just be messing up.
Well, Nettle
Yeah.
at that in Tawny Man is like 16.
Yeah, she's
this-
young.
Okay,
still.
never mind then.
Yeah.
I tend to like get the time frame mixed up.
Well,
It's
very seldom are we given any time frame like benchmarks in this series, so
Mhm.
it's easy to do. Frodo,
I'm
lay
pretty
down.
sure the last time Fitz told us his age was when he was like, yeah, I was 13. And that's the first time that he had like killed. And then we're all just like left floating. So like
The
Fitz
rest
is
of it is
13 for the
guess.
rest of his life, or he's
Yeah,
16.
we never like we get like a few times where like Fitz is like Molly is this age and she's like 1 or 2 years older than me, but he never
Yeah.
like directly references his age after that.
Yeah. I bet Molly doesn't even really know either her like birthday for sure, or like her somewhat true age, because her mom dies really before she's old enough to remember her, right? And like, her
Yeah.
dad wasn't
And her
the
dad
kind to like celebrate her birthday.
Yeah, well, was her birthday on that like
Oh, yeah, was it on that tablet?
yeah, that Fitz read for her? It might have been.
I think that her mom said like on this day, my
Oh,
mom
just like on
was
this
born, but I
day.
don't think it was like the actual date. But I mean,
That's it.
there isn't like we aren't given their kind of way of keeping time, like their months or like the names of their days or anything like that. So she could have been like writing the actual day out, and we don't know because Fitz doesn't tell us.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, also right after the Burge scene, Fitz says one of the rawest lines in this entire series, which is, "Even if my friends believed me dead, my enemies knew better." And I'm like, oh shit,
Mingo.
bars.
Yeah. There was a line that I really liked that I forgot to mention in chapter 11, where he says, I grinned suddenly to myself. I would not let so small a thing as my death come between us. I'm like, that's kind of badass.
Oh yeah.
But also, like, your death is not a small thing, Fitz. Like, surprise! I'm actually alive. I'm not dead. Let me raise our baby. Like, what? He's definitely still got like some naivete and like youth to him for thinking that. And it's very sweet. And I'm not going to burst his bubble. I'm going to be like, yes, go to Molly. Go to your love. Raise your baby together. Tell her you're alive. It's going to work out perfectly.
You just like, need to encourage him because we know what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm
If we tell him the truth, he'll give up everything.
Yeah.
Need to bait him with purpose that he actually follows through on his quest before he can, lapse into the equivalent of a coma for the next 16 years.
Yeah. One thing that I do wonder that I just thought about is like, what do you guys think would have happened to Fitz if they had taken him to Tradeford? Like, with the skill command on him? Like, do you think that he would have gone mad because the skill command is such a strong thing and they're taking him in the opposite direction that he needs to be in to, like, fulfill that command?
I think he might have gotten sick, because didn't he start getting, like, sick when he tried to walk the other direction or something?
I think he, like, walked, and then at one point he couldn't go any further. Like, his body would not let him go any further.
Right.
But if he's being forced in the opposite direction, like, I wonder what effect that would have had on him.
Yeah, he might have gone, like, crazy the way. Wasn't there
August.
someone that, like, went crazy because of a skill command? Or is that in my
August?
head?
Yes.
A little bit August. Or,
Well, I
like,
think it was also someone else.
Perf, that he's, like, the Chalcidian that Dwalia takes through the skill pillars too many times, and he just goes, like, bonkers.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
his brain, like, can't handle the level of skill. Like, I think it'd be something similar to that, where he would just kind of go nuts because his brain would break.
That would be a rough way to see Fitz go.
Yeah.
Like, he would just be completely Hodor at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like there isn't much to talk about in Blue Lake other than Small Ferret, so just gonna we already covered Small Ferret, but he is great. And again, Fitz would have waltzed straight into another trap here if he didn't have another wit buddy to be like, nope, it's a trap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Fitz
Trap,
is
trap.
really so predictably stupid. And like, I don't blame him, but also, boy, come on.
Mm-hmm.
I love that one Small Ferret has, like, given his message and made it clear that Fitz should not go in there. He, like, goes in Fitz's shirt and, like, curls up real cozy and gets nice and warm. Like, I think that's the cutest thing in the world.
It is really cute.
And then just immediately like goes up to his neck and is like, I can kill real good.
Yeah, he's like, how will you kill? And he immediately bites his...
He's, like, so quick about it, too.
Snip,
But,
snip.
like, I feel so bad for Small Ferret because imagine the, like, grief and sadness and, like, anger that that tiny little thing must be feeling, and he traveled all this way to, like, save Fitz's life.
And it felt like Small Ferret is pretty young, and so to lose like your bond partner that early, like, yeah. And like it definitely has like that singularity of purpose in a similar way
Yeah.
to Fitz, where it's like, I got this one thing that's keeping me going.
Mhm. At least we get the satisfaction in knowing that Small Ferret, like, fulfilled his final purpose and did get to kill the, what did he call him? Old Blood Hater.
Yeah, old blood hater. And he says, like, one eye is waiting or something about Will.
Yeah.
Will is so creepy.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with his, like, sunken in eye. I always forget about that until, like, Fitz mentions that it's there. I'm like, oh, I forgot that he's, like, disfigured.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from poison.
I can't process like every time like Small Ferret is like old blood hater, because like I just like read hater as like the like all my
Like the
haters
internet
give
version. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like,
Regal
I
is
just
a
like can't
hater.
take it seriously.
Regal's
But
the biggest hater.
Regal is like the original hater.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he is.
Also, wait, I mentioned this last time, but this is definitely how I like visualize Will now, except like younger, obviously. But go.
What is that from? Is that actually Will?
Why can't I
No,
see?
that's from
Did you send it? Oh, you did.
I said in general. It's from a show called Arcane, which I mentioned last time. But I
Oh
didn't
my
like,
god, yeah, that would be so freaking creepy if that was Will.
It does give Will
We have to
vibes.
post that on our Instagram so that people can see
Yeah,
it all.
yeah.
I was gonna say post it on the Instagram.
Mhm.
After your introduction, because who are you?
Right.
It's just no one knows.
If anyone
Not
wants to
as
follow us on Instagram, our Instagram handle is Return to the Realm Podcast.
Yeah,
No
it's also,
punctuation
it
or
should be
anything.
linked in that we have a link tree where it should be linked.
So if you want to see the picture of Creepy Will, definitely head over there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't think we have anything else for Blue Lake because it's a pretty like short chapter in general.
There's one tiny thing that I had, and it's just something that I was like kind of curious about because Fitz is talking about like the knife that caused him to have that little sword scrape or whatever that they're calling it. And Fitz asks like if Starling would like to see it, and he says Starling only smiled broadly and made a small warding gesture with her hands. What do you all think that warding gesture is? And do you know any like warding gestures in real life?
I know that there's like a Greek one, which like I don't think I'm doing it properly, but I think it's something like this, and you just like wave your hand. I'm not I the where it's like it's sort of like a little like horn thing, and then you do this. The
Mhm.
mm, but also like don't quote me on that.
Yeah, but that's all I had.
Mhm.
Because I was thinking about that. I'm like, that's such a strange thing. Like, I wonder what her hands are doing.
Mhm.
Right.
I'm mad because they also mention like a warding gesture at like the start of Percy Jackson, and that's how I know there's a Greek one.
Oh, dang.
But I can't remember how they describe it. I just know that there's like a little like shooing motion. But yeah. Okay, so we're moving on to chapter 14, Smugglers. In Blue Lake, Fitz meets up with Starling, who thinks that she has a connection who can help take them across to the mountains. This is the titular smugglers who are carrying some pilgrims. And essentially, Fitz is like, hey, you can take us along and we'll pay for our passage. But Fitz ends up having to essentially promise to give his Burge's necklace as payment for their travel. Um, and with that said, it's basically sort of like yeah, that's basically like the whole thing, like him interacting with Starling and then them negotiating that deal.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, I have no notes about any of the stuff that like actually happens in this chapter. Both of my notes are about Ida or Edda, like the goddess. Like that's it.
Yeah, I don't really have any notes for this chapter other than the fact that they mentioned Hargars again and that Starling really does fit the example perfectly of minstrel.
hmm
Yeah, I was reading the intro of the chapter. I'm like, this is like hard setting up that Starling is going to be used to essentially like secure Nettle's claim to the throne.
hmm
It does make sense. I'm reading what Alex put about Ida or Edda, and you're totally right. It makes sense that like the mountain people would worship Edda or Ida because she's like the land deity, and then the Buck people would worship El because he's like the ocean deity.
Well, and I feel like the people of Buck don't see her as being this like scary and destructive and very powerful deity. Like they just see her kind of as like this fertility goddess who's gonna like be this like great motherly figure. But
Mhm.
we can see in this chapter for sure with like the drought and all of the horrible and like the wildfires that happen in this land that Mother Nature is not always kind, and not every mother is going to be a nice and good and nurturing mother. And so it makes sense why Ida would be more respected and like also seen as like vengeful and destructive in this part of the world. And then I don't think Elle is even like talked about at all because all of the people in Pharaoh really haven't ever even seen the ocean. So they don't like he is just as far removed from them as the ocean is.
Yeah, like there's one part where I think someone says like the plains are my ocean, or like maybe Fitz is
Yeah.
saying that of the nomads. Yeah, I wish we got to know more about like the nomads' culture and stuff because it feels like something that would be so unique from the six duchies that we normally would see, and we just
Yeah.
like don't interact with them much.
I'd like to learn more about the Haragars.
Of course. Now I'm seeing them everywhere, and I'm like, did I not? Did I just? I was just like, yeah, they Haragars, the very normal real world thing, which I know about.
Which is not.
Mhm.
I assumed that it was an actual creature. I didn't even think to look it up.
Mhm.
So
I
now
just
that
wanted
I
to know
know
what
it's
it looked
not,
like.
it stands out. Yeah,
I was like, what does this thing look like? And then I'm like, wait, this is fake? What?
it's fake.
Hashtag
Yeah, I
fake.
wonder how she got that name because it sounds like a word, like something you'd try to pass off as a word when you're playing a game of Boggle that you want to win.
Yeah.
It sounds so made up.
It's like it
Which
feels like it's one of those things. Yeah, it's like the Nordic people call like they call their boars Haragars. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an ancient Viking term. Trust me, bro. Trust me.
trust me.
It seems legit.
Hmm. Trust me. Citation needed. Um. Oh yeah, I was gonna say like at the start of this chapter, like Fitz just goes to like a public bathhouse, and I'm like, last chapter Fitz was reminded by the apple wine of Rurisk, and I feel like I'm surprised that he doesn't also have like trauma over like bathhouses or whatever, given like how the ending of Assassin's Apprentice went down.
Yeah. I didn't even
Yeah,
think about that.
me neither.
I feel like
I wonder
though.
if
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I wonder if frequenting the baths in Buckkeep helped that. Because it
Yeah.
sounds like he went there a lot with like the soldiers after fighting red ships and stuff.
I
That makes sense.
also
Yeah.
feel like taste and smell have such it like you can tie them to memories more strongly than just kind of a surrounding. So, and if he doesn't drink, like if he avoids apple wine at all costs now because of that memory, it makes sense why it would be so much harder hitting when he
Mhm.
has it this first time.
I guess like Fitz like does have lots of like memories to tie to drinks. There's also like the blackberry med that is like his youth thing, and then we later have the apricot brandy, which is just me and the fool being besties. I guess for you were mentioning like the droughts and the storms earlier, and I completely forgot about that, and I feel like they mention it a lot slash do that world building. And I sort of wish that like they brought it back more, or like I guess like this sort of implication is supposed to just like be sometimes random bad stuff happens, and you just have to like pick up the pieces, and people have to look for something to blame, so they blame their king, and it's sort of supposed to be like a parallel to the Red Ship Raiders, but I think it's like something really interesting that they could have like explored a little bit more, especially since like I know that like the planned B trilogy, which might not be happening now, was supposed to be centered around like the return of the Blood Plague, and I feel like that similar thing of like helplessness about something that you can't really control, plus as a monarch feeling like you should be able to do something about it. It feels like it would be a cool thing. And I'm just like, oh, you bring up all these themes, and then I don't see it referenced again later.
Yeah, I feel like so much goes on in these books. It's so hard to have everything continue or like matter, and you can only have a select few things that really drive the story and continue it.
Mm-hmm.
My unpopular opinion is that I don't think I want a B trilogy because I kind of want B to be left alone. She's been through enough.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think over a B trilogy, I would prefer to have like a Patience and Lacey story. Or
Mhm.
like I want something about like Kettricken. Like I want Kettricken to be the main focus of something for once too.
I mean, it's like you were just saying. There's like so much in these books that it's hard to like with the narrative she's had. It's hard to like fit in returning details. But like if you're no longer bound by like it has to be Fitz's point of view, there's so much you can expand in the past. So like, why not?
Yeah.
It would also be so, so cool if we got a story from like the Out Islands and we
Yes.
had something from like their point of view, either like during the Red Ship raids or like just anytime. I think it would be so we really don't know too much. Like we don't get that much.
Mhm.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
get like a good amount, but like I think I would like a full story centered in there.
For
That
also
would be
throwing out
cool
ideas
too.
for short stories, I would also like. I don't remember. I think her name was Pansy, the Ivy Runner. I think
Yes.
Yes,
that'd
the
be really
11.
dope. Mhm.
Yeah, that would be great. And like, if Hobb would do a story about her, that we would get her death also. Like, I feel like for sure we would just like it would be how she became an Ivy Runner through like her life until she dies being an Ivy Runner
Yeah,
too.
it feels like it would be like probably like a series of like 4 or 5 vignettes up until her
Yeah.
death.
Yeah. And then maybe the last one would be like Patience finding out about her death, and that's how we learn that she's like died or something like that.
Hmm. Um. Oh yeah, I guess like my note for this chapter was like I feel like an interesting thing about how Starling is around Fitz is that she's like so comfortable slash nonchalant around him, which is something that like no one else in this book really is. But it also then makes how she acts when she finds out about Fitz having the wit and how she just like changes in her behavior towards him later feel so much more of a betrayal.
Hmm.
She is like very brave because everything anyone's heard about Fitz lately is that he's like a monster at worst. Predictable man. Sounds like a young woman that is not a warrior or anything, and she's just like, you can sleep in my room. Like, she knows that he's not gonna do anything to her, which, like, I don't know, that would be, I think, scary.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the only reason that she is so comfortable is because of what her brother told her about Fitz, and that's the only reason that she
Right.
even is like seeking him out.
Okay, I think this is something I noted. I also think it's because like Fitz wants us to believe he's being mysterious and inscrutable throughout all of this, but I think when he says nothing, he's just like the easiest motherfucker to read still. I've
Yeah,
Mhm.
again, he thinks that he lies better than he does, and I think just like Starling is very like we've seen like Starling is incredibly perceptive. She can like just tell probably
yeah,
because
He's
Fitz is the
intuitive.
openest of books. Fitz is so open that like he's bent around the spine backwards this way. Like, um,
Speaking of Starling, you pointed out that she just like barks out that chivalry wore Fitz's earring when she's trying to use it as a bargaining chip. And it's just like another Antler Island move. Like, just call it out. Just call it out that this rando has King in Waiting Chivalry's earring. Why
yeah,
would
I
he
can't
have
even
that?
defend that. That's just so stupid.
Why would a guy that has like farseer eyes and a broken nose, which the bastard of chivalry is known to have chivalry's earring? I wonder. Like,
and then he starts traveling with his dog.
right.
It's not obvious
And then
enough.
Nick is immediately like, he looks kind of wolfish to me. And he's
Yeah,
like, you know, that's just how they make him down in
he's young.
book.
Don't look too hard at him.
Um, yeah, I guess like my last note is like I love like the whole talking around what's actually happening despite everyone knowing what's going on in like the scene where they're bargaining with Nick. It reminded me a lot of like um both how Rurik was talking about like if you were an assassin at the end of the first book, and also like the fool being like the I wasn't there, of course, but if I had been, like it gave me like I love how the series does that, and it gives me like big fool vibes whenever it does happen.
Oh, I like that. I didn't even think about that.
But yeah, that's all I had for this chapter. Is there anything else for Smugglers?
Nope.
Not for me.
Okay. Then the last chapter for this section is chapter 15, Kettle, which I find really funny because Kettle plays a pretty insignificant role in this chapter. So it's sort of just like I wonder why they're giving this whole chapter title to a character who's introduced here but doesn't do much. When we've had a bunch of other named characters who haven't got their own chapter title. It's like it's a bit of foreshadowing that she'll end up being important. But yeah, basically, Fitz and the caravan set out. Ends up meeting and talking to Kettle a little bit, but doesn't learn much about her other than she's originally from Buck. And then Nighteyes returns and meets up with Fitz. And the end of this chapter, Fitz has another skill dream where Regal is shown to be able to skill by leeching off of Will.
Early Kettle reminds me a little bit of Lady Time. She's obviously like a more tame version, but just the way she's like kind of crotchety and like complaining. And it's funny that Fitz likes her. Like Fitz is very enchanted by her, like maybe not enchanted, but he's like amused by her. And I wonder if that's because she reminds him a little bit of Lady Time, too.
And probably Shade in general. And
yeah,
like maybe
and just
a little bit of Shrewd.
someone from Buck that he can kind of like shoot the shit with a little bit.
Yeah.
And just like Lady Time, it's like that whole thing of being back in like a carriage, or like being at the front of the horse, that kind of thing. Because like met Lady Time on that trip to Neat Bay, I think it was.
Yeah. For some reason, the first time that I read this, I pictured Kettle being blonde. Like the entire book, I'm like, Kettle is blonde. And then I read it today and my mind was blown. I'm like, wait, she's got dark hair? Like, what the heck? I was so surprised.
I picture her as like, have you seen Insidious or Insidious Chapter 2?
I feel like I have, but it was years and years ago.
The like main bad guy ghost in the end of the first one and then leading into the second one is like an old woman dressed all in black, and like she always has a veil over her face. And for some reason, that's how I picture Kettle, which is kind of terrifying because she's like really bad.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and you find out in the well, I'm not going to give spoilers.
Oh,
I guess.
because I'm definitely going to watch Insidious.
This is spoilers. Anyone
listening doesn't want to be spoiled by Insidious Chapter 2, then don't listen for the next minute.
Yeah,
but
I'll hold my hand up and then put it down when we're done with spoilers.
Yeah. It ends up being like a old man whose mother like forced him to dress as a woman growing up because she wanted a daughter, and then he's like this old guy that dresses up as a woman and then like murders young women. So it's like a serial killing, like not even trans person because they're like not.
He's just a cross-dresser, right? Isn't that what they? That
allowed?
Like
dressing as a woman to murder people. Yeah. And so I wish I didn't picture Kettle like that, but my brain just decided to lock in on an image, and that's what it is forever now.
Oh shit. At least now I can change Kettle. She's no longer blonde, you know. The pot calling the kettle black. Of course her like hair is black. Her name's Kettle. It makes sense.
Calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm definitely not going to be watching Insidious because that sounds like kind of a dog shit plot twist. But yeah.
Yeah, Insidious Chapter 1 was a lot better.
Mhm. I've heard like
But
lots
the
of good things about it as a
mom-
horror movie, but yeah.
The mom in Chapter 2 is really scary.
Hmm.
Sure.
Okay.
Here I'm
Spoilers gone.
posting a picture in general for you guys.
Another thing for the Instagram.
I like all the pictures. We're gonna have to just post it as like a little what's it called? Where it's like all together.
Oh yeah, where you can slide through.
Yeah,
Otherwise, people
I'll
will
see
be
if I
like,
can get them
"Why
as
are
like
they
inserts in the
posting?"
video as well, so people.
Oh my god, that's so freaking scary.
Excuse me?
I'm so glad that I picture Kettle as like some like regular old lady now compared to that creepy ass shit.
Yeah, I always imagine Kettle as like very lively and with like a smirk on her face. So this is just like this lady
That's
looks so dead, which makes sense
terrifying.
for Kettle because she's
Yeah.
like 200 years old. It feels like she should already be in the grave, but also
No
Yeah,
thanks.
I mean, to be fair, this is a ghost. But yeah, one thing about Kettle that I don't understand is how she's keeping herself how she's been keeping herself alive when she's been locked from the skill. Because don't they have to use the skill? Like, isn't Shade constantly using the skill to heal himself and keep himself alive when he's getting old?
Well, Fitz's body does it without his like consent and without his control. So it could be that.
it feels like it's just sort of like a passive skill user trait, TM. And I think Shade has to do it consciously because like he
not
acquired it
prepared.
later in life, and also I think he sort of has like this belief that he needs to do it proactively.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, a line here that I liked is, I suppose there was something about me that made all elderly folk assume as I was at their disposal.
I
Like,
love that. Because I mean, it's true. Like, I mean, obviously with Shrewd, we see that. And then with Shade, he's just bossing him around all the time. And it doesn't even have to be like elderly people. It's like patients. It's anyone who's older than
well,
him.
okay, wait. He pictures Patience and Burridge as like ancient, so
That's true. So I guess they count then.
yeah. Um. Oh yeah, like all of my other notes are from when like Nighteyes returns,
Same.
and like Fitz is like, I was whole once more. I had peace, and
That's really cute.
and I love like the acknowledgement that like finally an acknowledgement, or like Night Eyes forces Fist to acknowledge that like they've changed each other, where if Night Eyes like, he had missed my form of thinking, the sorts of ideas and discussion that wolves never shared amongst themselves, um and Night Eyes is like, we don't share, we are one. I am no longer wolf, you're no longer a man. What we are together I have no name for. See how much a man I am that I speak of having a word for an idea. No word is needed, we exist and we are whatever we are.
I loved that.
Yeah.
Something I noticed is when Nighteyes is coming back, and Nighteyes, like the first thing Nighteyes says is my brother, and Fitz like jolts awake and is like, Nighteyes? And he's like, yeah, do you have a new brother now? And Fitz says, never, only you, my friend. And the thing that struck me is like, Fitz calls Nighteyes his friend, not my brother. And I feel like that's Fitz kind of like holding himself back emotionally because he's afraid that Nighteyes isn't going to stay. So he's like, I gotta keep my distance just in case like he leaves again, I won't be devastated.
Oh, they're all coming.
I think you just want Fitz to be like not as immediately accepting of Night Eyes.
But he calls it like every other time he says my brother, my brother. But this is the first time where he's like my friend. Like that's so weird. It feels out of place.
It
Like,
is
it
a little
doesn't.
weird, but he does also immediately say, "I was whole once more. I had peace." Oh,
Yeah, but I feel like, yes, that makes sense that he's, like, feeling that, but, like, he's probably also worried that Nighteyes is gonna leave, because, like, at first, he doesn't know that Nighteyes is, like, right outside the door. And he's like, "Oh, like, what's Nighteyes need? Like, is something wrong? What's going on?"
Right.
it almost feels like a Hallmark Christmas movie where it's like, "Surprise! I'm here for Christmas."
Yeah.
Just flew halfway across the country to surprise you.
Yeah, and I love the line Fitz is like, "I managed to roll over and was trampled several times by a joy." And I was like, "Oh my god, that's so freaking cute." Like, I can just imagine, like, Nighteyes just leaping on him and, like, continuously pouncing on him. Like, that's so freaking cute. I love it.
Hmm. And then Night Eyes, like, when Fitz is forcing Night Eyes to pretend to be a dog, Night Eyes is like, "I'll chew your heel off for you, and you will pay for this. I promise you." Just immediately like, like snarky, like you're dead, kid.
Yeah, I love that. I think that we all, like, did we all have that line? Because I definitely had that note too.
Hmm.
Yeah, I did.
My last note for this chapter was about the Regal's first skilling TM. Um, Makes me sad because I feel like from this point on we don't get to see Will as like a villain of his own in his own right because it's always just like Regal riding him, and I'm like, ah, Regal ruins everything. He even ruins like the one good villain in the series. Like, come on.
My note was also about that section, but it was Regal said, "Have you no thought for what will become of us if Verity succeeds?" And, like, it just got me thinking, does Regal think that Verity is as, like, ruthless and vindictive as he is? Because, like, he thinks the worst of everyone. Like, he's like, if I'm this bad, like, my brothers have to be this bad too. Or does he just kind of know that nothing good will happen to him? Like, that he'll face some sort of backlash if Verity, like, comes out of everything alive.
I think Regal really thinks that everybody's head works like his does. Because remember in Royal Assassin when Kettrick like makes that speech to like go out and kill the forged ones and whatever, and Regal's like, she's trying to get power for herself so she can steal our throne, because it like just does not occur to him that she wants to do what's right by the people. Like, his brain cannot comprehend that someone would have different motivations than the motivations that he has.
Yeah, that
Which is
makes
funny
I think
because
he
no one
really
else can comprehend Regal's motivations other than Fitz for most of the series.
right, right. I think he really thinks that, and that's why he's like A, he's just an evil jackass, but B, he's so defensive because he thinks that Verity is, or Shrewd, or Fitz is going to be just as ruthless as he is with like revenge and wanting power and stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, co-sign all of that. I also think it's like at this point we know that Regal's trying to instigate war because he knows about the skill dragons. And so he's worried that like, oh man, okay, if Verity actually manages to like create a skill dragon of his own, he's just gonna run us down kind of thing. Because yeah, because they mention like later on like how they know from the skill scrolls that that's what Verity's going to do basically, even though Verity himself doesn't know until he gets there.
Okay.
But yeah, those are my notes for this chapter. What do you guys have?
I think we ran through all of mine.
Yeah, I think my only other one was when Nighteyes is explaining why he left the wolves, and he says, "I wanted to be the leader." He turned and looked at me over his shoulder, his tongue lolling out. "I'm used to being the leader, you know." I feel like that was some hardcore shade thrown at Fitz. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you
Definitely.
just listen to me.
I love it. Like, just Fitz has been like so despondent the past few chapters that it's so nice to have some humor back in his life.
Mhm. Definitely.
And I feel like Fitz is so used to being a follower that, like, whenever someone is like, let's do this, he's just like, okay, and goes along with it. So, of course, Nighteyes is going to be the leader. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Fitz is not the leader of the pack.
Well, okay. I feel like sometimes like Nighteyes is like, yeah, we'll go do it. Like when like Fitz is like, I have to go kill Regal, and like Nighteyes is like, yeah, okay, I get it. I'm with you, bro. But also,
But
it's
then
really
he
funny.
does see, like, the full reason why once Will attacks him with the skill, and, like, Nighteyes has to save him again.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's everything we have for this section.
Yeah.
Which, after spending 40 minutes talking about the first chapter, I was like, oh man, we're not going to get through everything. But I think that we kind of discussed lots of the later chapter contents in that earlier part. So
Yeah, for sure.
We've been doing good with this book so far.
Yeah.
With getting all the chapters in one go.
yeah,
I was looking at it, and I think with the breakup, we might have to do a little bit of different, like, chapter breakup for the last section. Because I think it's like chapters 35 through 41. And I feel like unless some of them are short, we might have to do some breaking up into 2 episodes just because that's kind of a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually the last couple chapters of the Farseer books are pretty short because she
She has like
speeds everything up at the end.
she has like an epilogue chapter and then the actual epilogue.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like so much happens that it might be too, like, even though they're fast, like, they can be a little bit dense too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like barely anything happened in the first chapter of this section, and we had like so many notes for it. So
Yeah.
and like since this is a trilogy conclusion, I'm sure we'll have so much to talk about. So yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, still a way, still probably like a month off from that.
Yep.
Next time is going to be chapters 16 through 20 of Assassin's Quest. This is going to cover Fitz's travel to Jampe. So it's going to be pretty exciting. We get to see Fitz almost die again, and that's basically our entire purpose of this podcast. So
instead of is Fitz happy, is Fitz dead? That could be our thing.
Mm-hmm. That's like, if anyone needs a backup name for like another Realm of the Elderlings podcast, first of all, please make it, because more podcasts in the space is great. And second off, give us the licensing rights because we came up with the name.
Yes. We called it.
Yeah, when you get that sweet Adagio Teas sponsorship before us, we're gonna take a percentage of the fee.
Yeah, I think 50%.
Yeah, that's how contracts work.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that should be everything. So thanks y'all for watching, and we'll see you next week. Till then.
Bye.
Bye.